Good morning, Rabbi Young.
Good morning, Jay.
We're still getting lunch and everything ready, so don't want you to see us.
No problem. Hope everyone's doing well. Hi, Linda. Hi, Marcia.
Hi.
I think
Hi.
I'm pretty sure we're live on Facebook. So as always, watch what you say. Yes, we are live on Facebook. I just checked. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Or
morning.
good noon.
Whoa. Ooh.
What does your shirt say?
Oh, my shirt's from a little fishing trip we went on. It says Dufresne and Redding charters from Zihuatanejo, Mexico.
Oh. Did you catch anything?
Well, this is, of course, a joke shirt.
Okay.
So who are Dufresne and Redding?
I don't know.
The two main characters of the movie.
Do we ever hear his name is Redding? He just says his name is Red because he's Irish.
I'm gonna talk about that actually. Well, there's a little trivia about that. The original story, that's the Stephen King story, the character is Irish. So they left it in there as a joke.
Yeah. Well, it could be.
All kinds of jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got another minute. Good to see people filing in. Hi, Diane. Hi, Heather. Hi, Art.
Hi. Good day.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you all.
One of my favorites.
The movie?
Yeah. Oh, I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm scrolling and it comes on the, what's on TV, I just start watching it,
You are not alone. Lots and lots of people agree with you.
Right.
I'm gonna get in the next minute or so. I'm gonna grab a little bit more water and then and we'll get started.
You see what the title of this forever?
Hi, Art.
Hey, good day. Hi, how's everybody?
Good.
Good to see y'all. I have my son here with me, and we both, between the two of us, we know the total script of this movie.
Okay.
Rabbi, my son's here, and between the two of us, we know the script. So if you need a little pusher.
Wait, if I try to quote it, you guys can correct me. What? Remind me your son's name, please.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. Okay.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi, Jeffrey. All right. Well, I've got us at noon. So hello, Judy. Good to see you. Hello, Gerald and Judy.
Hi.
I'm going to go ahead and get us started with the Shawshank Redemption. 1994 movie directed by Frank Darabont, based on the Stephen King book Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Oh, my friends in Cincinnati don't know I'm teaching. This is what we were just saying. So as you can see, although this is a picture of the beach in Israel, I wanted to show that this is the shirt that I got on our little fishing trip, Dufresne and Redding fishing from Zihuatanejo, Mexico, of course. And this is not only a picture. This is a picture not of the Mexico beach, but of the beach in Jaffa. And that's not a picture of me. It's a picture of Holly Gordon. So I do what I can, but I get as close as I can. So this movie was nominated in the 1995 Oscars for seven Oscars. It did not win any. And it was not really critically acclaimed when it first came out. In fact, it only made about $1 million in the box office. It has recouped that greatly over the years. In an interview that Tim Robbins did in the early aughts, on the 25th anniversary of the movie. So it must have been 2014. He said that when the movie first came out, people would see him on the street and they would say, "Weren't you in that Shawshank Redemption movie or Shawshank, Seesaw Redemption?" And they didn't really recognize it because it was not really very well received. But now, 25 years later, when the interview happened, people are like, "Oh my God, Shawshank Redemption, my favorite. Shawshank Redemption, changed my life." And so now when they stop him, Shawshank Redemption is the movie they mention. Maybe they haven't seen Hudsucker Proxy, but it is, no secret what a great movie this is. But because it was 1995, because it was the 1995 Oscars, the Best Picture award went to Forrest Gump. Best Actor went to Tom Hanks for Forrest Gump. Best Writing Based on Previous Material went to Forrest Gump. So really tough competition. It was also nominated for 2 Golden Globes. Sound, just in case you want to know, cinematography, Legends of the Fall. Sound was Speed. Best Score was Lion King, and Best Editing, Forrest Gump. So it was a Forrest Gump kind of year at the Oscars. Same with the Golden Globes. These both went to Forrest Gump as well. It got another 21 wins and 27 nominations. Most of its wins are from the 2020 awards. The 2020, it's 20/20, not the year 2020, but the 2020 awards are awards given to a movie 20 years after it comes out. So it's in the 2014 2020 awards, the Shawshank Redemption swept. And that's because it's one of those movies that, although it didn't get a lot of acclaim when it first came out, it has not only withstood the test of time, it has thrived in the test of time. It has a 9.3 IMDb rating. It is the #1 movie on IMDb. It took over from The Godfather. The Godfather was the #1 movie on IMDb when IMDb first came out. It took over from The Godfather about 3 years later and has maintained its position ever since. There's a lot of fluctuation in the top 5, top 10, what's in, what's out, what it's compared to, what order it's in. But for pretty much since 2008 or so, Shawshank Redemption has been the #1 movie. It got with 9.3 IMDb, 80 on Metacritic. Most of the review, the reason it's such a high score for Metacritic, but low compared to what we'd think, is because, again, critically, it didn't do so well when it first came out. But over the years, the critical reviews have been more and more favorable. But it is, I think the excitement in your eyes when I told you last week that we were going to watch Shawshank Redemption this week is enough to say, what a great movie it is. And did anybody watch this for the first time last week? Awesome. Congratulations. So then let me ask the three of you whose hands I saw, did you like it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very much.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
can't
it
believe
was-
I
it was-
haven't seen it before this.
It was also my first time and I liked it.
All right. Well, congratulations to all of you who've seen it for the first time. I'm glad y'all liked it. I remember seeing it in the theaters, and loving it, but I didn't remember that it didn't, I didn't remember that it didn't do well. I do remember being disappointed at the Academy Awards because I thought it was a better movie than Forrest Gump. But both movies, one of the things that the two movies have in common is that they're very long for 1994. 1994 was a year of 90-minute action movies. This is when Bruce Willis was a megastar. And to have a 2-hour or 2.5-hour movie was a lot. This is like 142 minutes, so 2 hours and 20 minutes, and Forrest Gump is really close to 3 hours. So it's very surprising to have two very long movies for their time being so well received, either at their time or 20 years later. The line that gets to me is "get busy living or get busy dying," and I think we have two pairs of characters that I really identify as two who get busy living and two who get busy dying, and not including Brooks. Brooks is the old man with the bird who hangs himself when he gets to the halfway house, and skipping a little bit of it, but that you understand. And I'm not including him because I think that his version of get busy dying, like his, is not an intentional thing. It is an aspect of he just is lost in the world he's in, which is a part of of a problem of the entire incarceration system, the entire justice system we have, is the lack of support that former inmates get when they come out into the real world, which is something that that people have been trying to fix over the last several years. But certainly in the early time period where this takes place, it was not. It was just almost hopeless for people who got out of prison and had to deal with the world. But the get busy living or get busy dying is more of an attitude towards life, and I do think Brooks's attitude towards life was a get busy living attitude. He just only knew how to live in the prison. So the pairs that I wanted to point out, starting of course with Andy Dufresne. The movie begins with Andy sitting in a car, drinking, loading a gun, and listening to music. And the song that's playing, the lyrics are "If I Didn't Care." If I didn't care, could I feel this way? Is one of the lines. And of course the crooner is asking the question kind of sarcastically, of course he cares. And at first watch, you kind of think that the peshat, so to speak, the simple explanation is that the song is referring specifically to him watching his, the house where he knows his wife is with another man. But it's also in general an underscoring of Dufresne's entire character. He does care. He cares deeply, even if his presentation is cold or distant. He says in his testimony that he loses his nerve and tosses the weapon, and the DA says, "You lose the gun and it gets lost. Isn't that convenient?" And Andy responds, "No, since I'm innocent, it is decidedly inconvenient." And yet he says it with no emotion. It's also, sorry, Jay, very typical accountant personality. I'm sorry, very stereotypical accountant personality, where he is, you know, a by the numbers, by the books kind of guy. But it's also a part of what allows him the patience to escape that kind of regimented, task oriented, data oriented, you know, got to do this, then the next thing is this, then the next thing is this. His brain is built for that mundanity of taking a handful at a time of rocks into the yard and kicking the dirt around as he goes on his stroll. The cutting the cutting a hole in the wall with a rock hammer, where that he says, you know, to when he asks Red for it, and he says, you know, you're going to try to dig out, or you're going to try, you know, whatever, and he laughs, and he says, when you see this thing, you'll know why that's funny. And then Red acknowledges, yeah, that's funny. When I see this, you know, this tiny little thing, that is kind of funny. This is what works, you know, his personality helps him keep his time going by doing these little tasks step by step by step. Pressure and time. That's what Red calls it, pressure and time. Speaking of Red, yes, Ellis Boyd Red Redding. I don't think they ever say his full name except in the hearings where he's at the panel, the pardon hearings, is that what they're called? Where he sits in front of the panel, and the first couple times he says, oh, you know, yes, I've totally reformed my ways. I'm not a danger to society. And it's and over the years that he's been there, it's a line for him. Parole hearings, thank you. It's just a script. He's not really saying it with passion. He's saying what they want, what he thinks they want to hear. I'm no longer a menace to society. I'm not dangerous. I don't, you know, of course. And he gets rejected. And then it's when you see them stamp the form that you see his name. So I don't know if they use his full name, but they, you know, they call him Red. And as I mentioned before we officially started, the line where he says, where someone says, why do they call you Red? And he says, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm Irish. That's actually a line from the original book, because the character is Irish in the original story, and they left it in because they thought it was funny. When Morgan Freeman was cast, they wanted Clint Eastwood to play this character. There was another famous actor they wanted to play this character, and same with Andy Dufresne. He went through a lot of different actors. Tom Cruise was up for the part. And I think that the way this landed, it was perfect. I can't, you know, I think these are two great actors who really did these parts well. Red is connected. He's the one who can get you things. It allows him this again, a busyness. He's got, well, not only a busyness, but a business. He's running a business to get things moving. When the new prisoners come in, among whom is Andy Dufresne, they're you know, and they're betting on who's going to be the first one to cry. They you know, he's the bookie. He's the one who's organizing. He's the one who is the central figure of their bets. He is the businessman of prison. I really like the fact that the movie shows the first time Andy gets something from Red, you kind of see it all play out. You see the laundry being delivered. You see the one guy taking the special bag and giving it to the right person, who again gives it to the right person, who gets it to Red, who gives it to Brooks, who's pushing the library cart, who gives it to Andy. Like, it's got this whole train of movement to get it, but to get in that case, the rock hammer, to get that to Andy. But with the other items, they just show up. Because once you've seen how that happens, you don't need to see it again. I like it when movies trust the viewers to remember how things are done. So that part was fun that you see it once, and good that you don't see it again. Red also narrates, and I think that's a very important part of how the story is told, because Andy Dufresne could have probably narrated better than Red based on the information in his head. But because it was Red narrating, Red was able to be a little more emotional about it, to speculate on, I liked him. And this is what he wanted. Whereas I don't think that's the language that Dufresne would speak in. I don't think he speaks in the language of his desires and emotions. He was, again, more regimented and data driven. So Red narrating was perfect. That's probably how the story was written by Stephen King as well. I have not read the Stephen King book, which is a little surprising considering how many Stephen King books I've read, but I have not read the original story. I think Red's friendship with Andy builds our love and connection to the two characters. That we really feel for these two because of the emotions that Red puts on Andy, that Andy doesn't ever express. So Red's narrative of Get Busy Living is his providing for the community. The two who get busy dying, that I'm going to call it Get Busy Dying, are first Warden Norton, and this is a complete, I don't know, I suppose, irony as far as labeling him Get Busy Dying, because he's in the role of, warden, and a warden should be someone who cares about the security of the prison and keeping the prisoners in line first and foremost. But maybe this is naive of me. I think also should care about the well-being of the guards and the prisoners as well. Because if the guards and the prisoners are if they have a caring relationship where again, nothing, when misbehaving, breaking of rules happen, there's discipline, that's necessary. But when everyone's behaving the way they're supposed to be behaving, you don't have to bully each other. You don't have to be anything but caring toward one another. And the guards do show a sort of caring for Andy in their own way. It's not really the kind of caring we would expect in the way we express it today, but there is a kind of caring for Andy once he starts providing for them, once they see him as valuable, then they again, protect him. But Norton's prison, he talks about the Bible. He talks a good game about salvation lies within, which is another great ironic line in the movie. The idea that he cares about discipline in the Bible, but then you find out he really doesn't. He cares about himself. He cares about about business and making himself money and getting himself rich through the embezzlement that he's doing with Andy's program. He is not working toward living. He's working toward dying. And when he builds this empire for himself that can so easily fall apart with his own arrest, he sees no way out of it except to kill himself. And that moment at the end where he starts with pointing the gun at the door, and he almost immediately realizes the futility of this, that perhaps he is for a moment going to try to defend himself, but he knows how police work. If he starts shooting at them, he might as well call it suicide by cop, as we call it today. So instead, he decides to shoot himself in the head. The other one who gets busy dying is his partner, Captain Hadley. I am a huge fan of this actor. I love his voice. He played a preacher in like a horror TV show that I can't remember what it was called, and didn't take the time to look it up. But he's I think he's absolutely phenomenal. But he's only cast in these larger than life roles because he's like 82 feet high and has that voice in that low register that's only fit for playing, police officers and priests and devils. And he is the strong arm of Norton's Get Busy Dying. He is the implement of how Norton is, a killer in many ways. He, right in that first night when if Hadley is in charge of the other guards, which is what it seems, and Hadley expresses his discipline through physical punishment, then those guards that beat up the guy on the first night, the first guy who cries and they beat him so badly that he dies, I believe that they're an extension of Hadley's disciplinary style in the prison. So even if Hadley was not involved in that beating, I believe that Hadley and Norton are both a part of that beating, because they would never have stopped it if they were a part of it. And of course, Hadley does beat the sister towards the middle of the film, when once Andy Dufresne is doing something for the guards, then Hadley protects not Andy, but protects his own investments, protects his own ability to have his taxes done every year for free. And we'll get to the moment of where they talk about doing taxes in a minute. But again, Hadley is also he is working towards the negative. He when he gets arrested at the end of the movie, again, you see him just deflate, and it's a really powerful moment. He doesn't put up a fight at all. He just gets in the squad car. And here's a guy who's pushed through his physicality. I chose this picture because of the smile on his face. He knows he's about to throw a beat down, and he is happy about it. This is where Andy has locked them out of the office so he can play Mozart, and Hadley is almost excited that Norton says, "Okay, get in there," and so that is a get busy dying kind of attitude. So that's how I would pair the two sets of characters: Get Busy Living, Get Busy Dying. But I also want to, as far as character goes, there are so many other wonderful, rich characters. Bill Sadler plays one of the prisoners, and knowing what I know about Bill Sadler makes me enjoy his character even more, because Bill Sadler, the person, could not be farther from the prisoner he played. The Bill Sadler was the Hank Williams fan, and my wife was on an airplane to New York to audition for cantorial school. And sitting next to her on the plane is this very friendly, tie-dye wearing cargo shorts and Tevas or Birkenstocks, totally hippied out casual guy. He's chatting with her. They have this conversation from LA to New York. They just talk the whole time. She has no idea who he is. She and he says he's been in movies. He mentions a couple movies he's been in, and just by the movies she mentioned, I said, you shared an airplane ride with Bill Sadler. And not only did she share this airplane ride with Bill Sadler totally unawares, but when they left, he asked at leaving the airport, he says, "Where are you going?" She tells him, and he says, "I'm also going in that direction. Let's share a taxi." Great. She gets into his taxi. It's a limo, and not like a stretch limo, but it's a very high end car. It's a car service. It's not a taxi, but he's being so casual about it, and she offers to pay him. He refuses, and then of course when she calls me that evening, she realizes that she was being taken care of by someone who's quite famous in my head. So just like her description of how he was shows what a great actor he really is. He's kind of a that guy actor. I'll point him out for you again in a minute. So I think the movie is one of those, like, it's so quotable, but it's not quotable because of the lines in the movie. It's not like, oh, remember when he said this one thing? It's more like this scene where all of this stuff happened. That's what makes the movie so quotable, so memorable, is it's not just quips and lines and gotcha moments. It's setups. And each scene sets up so many other things and the details from the beginning that are at play later. I'll get to that in a second. So again, all of this is about pressure and time. The idea that, I just said the lines aren't quotable, and here I am quoting a line. But this idea that the things that happen in the movie are slow moving. A lot of pressure from being prisoner, but the action happens slowly, even though the scenes are so great. So some of my favorite moments with Brooks and the bird, when Andy pulls that grub out of his food, the first meal, even after seeing it 50 times, I still kind of think Brooks is going to eat it. He takes the grub and he's like, oh, that's a juicy, and then he opens his jacket and gives it to the bird, who we see later in the library. Like so the bird has its own little through line that Brooks has been taking care of this bird for this entire time. It's one of those cute character moments that does tell us more about Brooks than it does about Andy. But it's also like, I think it's maybe his first meal in prison, so he's really getting used to it. Another one of the through lines I like is that their meals, there are several scenes where they're in the cafeteria, and their meals are either a scoop of mush or a brick of what might pass for meat in some third world countries. So or in the military. So they've got, basically two things to eat as far as anything we see, which is something that we don't need to know, but it definitely illustrates the difficulties of prison life and how, all they do is get pressured and wait. One of the great, I don't think I'm the only one who would say that this beer on the roof is one of those great scenes. This is Bill Sadler holding the beer and lounging. That's him. The beer on the roof scene is great because it's one of those moments where you see something happening in a prison movie, which is a rarity. And Red kind of mentions that, he says that we were free for that, the taste of freedom, drinking a cold beer after a hard day of work outside. But the part I love about it is not necessarily the happiness and all of that, but where Andy overhears the guards talking, and there are so many better ways to start this conversation other than, do you trust your wife? That is the worst way to start that conversation, but it is so Andy. What he should have said is, hey, if you get $30,000, you're allowed to gift up to $60,000 to your wife. So if you trust your wife, you should give it to her as a tax-free gift and keep the whole $30,000 yourself. So he jumps right into the middle. He already knows the answer to, can you give this gift to your wife? All that other stuff he doesn't need to figure out. There's only one data point he's not sure of, and that's the trust. So that's what he starts with. Do you trust your wife? And any normal human being, when asked that question, do you trust your spouse, would be probably insulted at that question. And so, of course, his reaction is a violent one because he's a violent human. And so he lacks the social skills to start the conversation properly. In fact, most of the movie, he doesn't start conversations. He answers questions, but usually the only time he approaches someone and starts to talk is when he approaches Red because he wants something. So you know, I need a rock hammer. I need a poster of Rita Hayworth. That's when he starts the conversation. Other than that, you see others saying to him, hey, what did you do? What are you in for? What's the, let me ask you a question, and he'll answer. But he does have a great many skills. Andy has a great many skills that are rare in prison, especially in this kind of a high security prison, but so useful because he can do things that no one else can do, which means his skills are unique. And he's able to give them that, it does. This scene shows that he cares. I don't think in Andy's case it's transactional as far as like he's giving them beer because he wants them to be his friends. I think they were already kind of his friends because he was in the group that got chosen for roof detail. Because it was certainly implied that Red arranged this particular group to be the ones who were chosen for roof detail. I think he just wanted to see what freedom looked like one more time. To 3 beers for each of my colleagues is a way to let them be free. And then when Bill Sadler offers him a beer, he says, I gave up drinking, which again makes sense. That's a through line because he's sitting in front of his wife's home or her wife's boyfriend's house getting drunk. And it's that drunkenness that gets him into trouble. He goes to drink at a bar. He finishes off in front of her house. That, being full of booze is what got him into trouble. Because he was drunk, he didn't know what he was doing. He doesn't understand. He broke the bottle, dropped the bullets with his fingerprints all over them. Didn't think through what he was doing, and so he quits drinking. That makes sense. That even though this is probably the first time he's had the opportunity to drink since then, the fact that in his mind he's quit drinking makes sense. So for all of those reasons and more, I love this rooftop scene. Next is the day at the opera. So at this point in the movie, he has enough trust that the guard is going to leave him alone in the warden's office while the guard goes to the bathroom, and so he decides to play the record, and it he's playing from The Marriage of Figaro. He puts it on the loudspeakers so that his colleagues can hear it. I'm going to use his term. And even though his friends are not the culture wonks that he is, and again, the Bill Sadler character complains that he didn't play Hank Williams, as if as if he had a choice as the records as to the records that were in the warden's office. But that idea that he might not appreciate Mozart, but does like the fact that they heard music for a few minutes. And it's the music that makes his time in the hole easier, because they can't take that away from them. And that's the get busy living, is clinging on to that which cannot be taken. The next moment that I thought was fun was when they're tossing the cells. This is a little bit before the Day at the Opera scene, where we find out afterwards the warden is kind of testing to see if Andy can be trusted, if he's enough of a rule follower to let him into the office to do his taxes, to get that job at the library where he's going to do the other people's taxes, and eventually help him with his embezzlement scheme. And this moment with, Hadley says, there are a couple of things that are, again, there's a little bit of contraband in the cell, but nothing that can't be overlooked. Except for one thing. There is one thing in the cell that would be contraband at a high enough level that it would be taken from him and he'd get in trouble, perhaps time in the hole, perhaps a beating. And that thing is the rock hammer. And who's holding the rock hammer while they're tossing the cell? The warden. We don't necessarily know this until the end of the movie, but the warden is holding the Bible, and inside the Bible that the warden is holding is Andy's rock hammer. And so he holds it. He never opens it because they both can quote it from memory. So they're talking Bible. They have this moment. He shuts the door and then he hands it back to him through the bars of the cell. Here you go. Here's your rock hammer. And this is just one of those perfect moments of the scene being manipulated so perfectly that really is only enjoyed, I think, at its full capacity the second time. Like once you've already seen the movie and you already know what's happening, what's really happening in the scene, is it fully appreciated as to what is in the warden's hand. And of course, as he hands it to him, he says, "Salvation lies within," which may be my favorite line of the movie. And then an honorable mention is the scene where Andy explains the money laundering that's happening and the ghost that he's created to pin it all on. There's no real picture of that shows up in my head. Last is the escape, of course. This is the actioniest part of the movie, where it is probably the key moment of the film, even though it's the denouement. Knowing that Andy is gone by the time we see them look through this wall, by the time the warden throws the rock through Rita Hayward, or through Raquel Welch. Thank you, Raquel. I'm like, you're pointing at yourself because got it. So thank you so much. So he throws the rock through Raquel Welch, and at that, just brilliant moment. By the time they know that there's a hole here, he's gone. By the time they know that there's a hole here, he's probably sitting at the bank. Right as it opens, and the look on their faces in this still, to me, is just beautiful. So even knowing that he's already gone, watching it play out as Red narrates it is still fun, and it's still gross watching him crawl through that pipe, and just awesome. Like, he's got the rock in his hand, and he's so smart to wait for a rainstorm, the lightning flash, and then he hits because he knows the thunder's coming next. It's just brilliant watching it play out as only Andy could mastermind, really as only Stephen King could mastermind. And then when he comes out of it in the rain, this is the money shot of the movie that you know, when the movie was coming out, they didn't show this, of course, but now that it's so many years later, this is the picture that displays whenever you see that, you know, that Shawshank Redemption is playing at a theater again. This just first taste of freedom. He realizes he's out. He rips his shirt off. He gets, you know, that first feel of rain on his face in however many years. This is the moment where he knows he's done it. And because he knows what's coming next, because he's already planned it all out. So those moments are for me some of the key moments in the film where he really gets busy living and moves to form his company with Red in Zihuatanejo. So now your turn. Get busy talking. What are your thoughts that, you know, on the film? Art and Jeffrey, you've been wanting to talk this whole time. I've seen it.
Rabbi, I think it's absolutely hilarious. The first slide you showed, one when you were talking about Tim Robbins and people coming up and not really knowing who he is. My question that I was going to say at that point was, were there any other notable films that Tim Robbins was in? And I think it's funny that I was going to ask that question. It kind of goes along with that whole line of questioning about people not really knowing who he is. The second thing was when you said that, I think you mentioned that Speed beat this movie for sound at the Academy Awards. A part of me just kind of died because Speed is another movie that I've watched over and over and over again, and I don't really think that it competes in any way with the Shawshank Redemption.
No, yeah, Speed is one of my guilty pleasures because it gets a terrible rap, but it is so much fun to watch. You know, you know, the movie goes at 65 miles an hour the entire time, so it's great. But Tim Robbins was one of those characters who I've always liked, just as someone who enjoys actors in general. The Mystic River was a movie about 10 years after this, give or
Sean
take.
Penn, right?
Right, Sean Penn, and he was in that with Sean Penn, and I thought the two of them were key. A couple years before this was The Player. I already mentioned The Hudsucker Proxy. I don't know if you've seen Here and Now. He was also a movie I've only seen once, but I loved that he was in it, and I'm sorry that he was in it. Is Green Lantern. So he's in a lot of movies. He's even in Tenacious D and The Pick of Destiny. So he's in a lot of movies. Sometimes he just kind of appears and he's gone. He did an amazing movie about Bob Roberts, political satire movie, where that I think he might have even either had a hand in writing or producing or something like that. But Bob Roberts is political satire, and it's brilliant. You should watch Bob Roberts. I don't think our political environment is such that I'm comfortable talking about Bob Roberts right now. But and then another movie that I just loved him in was Arlington Road, which is a great mind-blowing tech thriller. So that's my, you know, Tim Robbins has been doing it a long time, and of course he's I believe he's married still to Susan Sarandon.
And not to hijack the session, but the last two things I'll say is, since you were talking about your favorite scenes, I think the two that come to mind, at least I know one for my dad, is when Andy Dufresne is staring down the warden and they're having a conversation. I forget exactly what they say, and Andy doesn't really like what the warden is saying, and he says, "You're being obtuse." And there's this back and forth, and there's this moment of silence. I mean, the back and forth in that moment is so intense, and then there's this moment of the warden kind of really recognizing that, at least on an intellectual level, that Andy is at least on his level, if not maybe above it. And there's this kind of reckoning of like, and then they get in, of course, back into the dialogue. But the second scene is when, I forget the character's name, when he's outside and the warden is asking him about if he'll testify to the things that he's seen and that he's heard. and then there's the guard. I think it's Hadley, who's sitting in the tower, and then he shoots him.
Yeah.
Just kind of gives you an insight into the way the warden really ran the prison, which was, if he got word of anything, he was going to take care of it himself.
For sure. Yeah. That I think the character's name is Tommy, the like Elvis guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of those moments in the film where we finally find out that Tim Robbins, that Andy Dufresne really is innocent, and Red has this kind of like, oh my God, there's someone innocent in Shawshank. All great scenes. I always think that, I always wonder in the scene where he's staring down the warden, as you just mentioned, I always wonder, does the warden know what obtuse means at that moment, or does he look it up later so he can throw it in his face when he's in the hole? Because when Andy's in the hole, the warden does use the word correctly, but I don't know that he knows what it means until then.
Yeah, it's great though, that taken aback moment where he just can't believe that someone is actually insulting him in some way. Maybe if he doesn't even know what it means, he knew that it was an insult.
Exactly. All right.
I think it was really neat that we don't really know until that point whether he did it or not. Because at the very beginning, everything looks like, well, maybe he could have, although we want to believe him. And at that point, that's when it's very clear.
Absolutely.
Rabbi Young,
Yes.
I wanted to know what you thought about the ending. I thought it could have ended a lot sooner because it was up. But every time I thought it was going to end, it just got happier and happier, and you just felt better and better and better. And I just wanted your opinion. Did you think the ending was too long?
No, I think I agree with your assessment. The idea that there was already a happy ending, so like, okay, where are you going to go from here? Oh, you're going to go even better. I like that he, again, that get busy living extended to his friend Red, and he set it up so that, like, when he tells Red, I want you to remember Zihuatanejo. I want you to remember this town. I want you to remember this wall with an oak tree. I want you to remember a lava rock and dig for the box. Like, he's really making sure that Red can follow him. And that, like, that, I think that's all a part of the get busy living. And that, and because we have that moment where he teaches Red how to find him, that we need that second and third happy ending. Especially how Red gets out, which is so different with the parole board. Thank you again. The parole board, and how they, when he finally just has the, you know what, folks, I don't care. And here's the truth. Here's how it is. And that's what's going to happen. Now do with me as you will. And they let him out of prison. So, like, I think that's fantastic. And it also speaks to, like, parole boards don't always want to hear a script. They don't want to know that you know the lines. They want to know that you understand them. And they want to, it reminds me of, like, security guards for El Al Airlines. They don't want you to say what they think you want them to hear. They want you to tell the truth. So when they ask me a question, I'm going into Israel. I feel like I tell the story all the time. I'm going into Israel to study to be a rabbi. I'm going to live in Jerusalem for a year. And I tell them, why are you going to Israel? I'm going to learn to be a rabbi. Why are you doing it in Israel? And I was like, because it's Israel. And I think that attitude from me for what I perceived as a stupid question is exactly what they wanted. And I think the same is true for the parole boards. Like, they want to know that you get it so deeply that you're fed up with the question. So I liked that way he got out. and that he, Red is also no dummy. Like he might not be erudite like Andy is, but he's no slouch. He gets things, he understands things, and he can remember things. It does take intelligence to run a business, and he's got it. I also don't think Andy would be best friends with someone who is dumb. I don't think he would have the ability to talk to someone on that level all the time. Judy.
You kind of know that Andy went to that tree by the wall and planted that. When he says there's something there I want you to have, it wasn't there yet, because the note inside had something specific for Red. So even if he hid something years ago, it wouldn't have had that note, so it seemed interesting to me. That part I thought, really, if I was finally free, I might get the hell out of Dodge. I might not stop and do what he did for his friend. So
yeah, or maybe freedom isn't really freedom unless you have people to share it with.
Good answer.
It is a good answer.
Thank you.
His innocence was a strong point in his character to keep him at a certain level, to know at some point he was going to beat this system, even though he was in there on false terms.
Right. And I think that it's also the line towards the end, I told you I was innocent. I had to come to prison. I had to come to prison to become a criminal. Which is actually a pretty common thing, that while they're in there together with other criminals, they learn tips and tricks.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing that Judy did, about that he had to have gone and buried, put the note in there after he got out, and about the get the heck out of Dodge or whatever. He did have to go to all the banks, and I was just thinking about it, but I guess he was okay because the only person who knew the name of the fictitious character he had set up was the warden.
Or did he?
Or did he?
Did the warden even know?
That's right. Yeah. So that's why he felt safe going to those places, I guess.
I think so. I think Andy and Red were the only two people who knew that person even existed. And yes, he obviously went and planted it, but what maybe there was something that he planted there with his wife when they got engaged. And so he knew that there was this lava rock in the wall at some point by the tree, or is he enough of a rock hound to know the wall and go and acquire the rock and put it there? Either way, it was definitely created by Andy as a part of his plan. He planned it all out. And he's able to do this because he has hope. A couple of texts from our tradition about hope. The first one from Psalms: I hope for Adonai, my soul hopes for God, I await God's word. This idea from Psalms it's quoted a lot by the Talmud, but what are they, what is the psalmist waiting for with God's word? The psalmist is waiting for redemption, for salvation, for the next stage in human existence. But his hope sustains him as he awaits God's word. It's an incredibly important and powerful thing. Another way we express it is in the Passover Haggadah. This is the bread of destitution. I'm using this translation just because I love that word, that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. This is halach ma'anya, this is the bread of destitution. Anyone who is famished should come and eat. Anyone who's in need should come and partake of the Pesach. Now we are here. Next year we'll be in the land of Israel. This year we're slaves. Next year we'll be free people. That is a major expression of hope. And it is the idea of using a piece of matzah to show hope is such I think, a brilliant innovation. The matzah is the poor bread. Halach ma'anya is the bread of affliction. And we use this to talk about our freedom. We put ourselves into an empathetic state so that we can truly understand the freedoms we celebrate and maintain our hope in an even better future than we have today, even though we're here this year, next year in Israel. And for the last 2 years at our Passover Seders, we've been saying next year in person. And of course, this year's Passover Seder, our prayer is that hope is fulfilled for real. I think our hope is a little bit more real now, more palpable than it was last year. That we can see the end of this coming. We can see that with vaccines and herd immunity and all of the ability that all the things that removing the red tape from scientific progress has provided, we're really moving forward as a global people. And finally, the from Ezekiel, God said to me, "Mortal, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are doomed." And the reason I show this quote as an actually their hope is, they believe their hope is gone, but that's incorrect, because what happens next is, this is the dry bones story. So Ezekiel watches as God raises these dry bones out of the valley, puts flesh and muscles back on them, not in that order, and then they join Ezekiel as his military backup. But this happens because Ezekiel has enough faith in God to have enough hope for their lack, and to say, like, God says, can I make these people walk again? And Ezekiel doesn't answer God's question I think very foresightfully. He says, only you know this, God. But it's that faith. It's like, it's one of those things, like, if you say yes, you're wrong. And if you say no, you're wrong for different reasons. But because he says, I believe in you, and what you want to happen is going to happen, that's the right answer. And it can be difficult to have hope in the valley of dry bones, in a prison. And the dry bones are the other people in the prison who have no hope of getting out, no chance to get out. And then if they do get out, you have no understanding of how the world works after spending decades out of the real world. Brooks mentions cars. Sure, there were a couple of cars here and there, but now they're everywhere. And that was in the, I think, 50s maybe. So they're even at more everywhere now. People often resign to their imprisonment in various ways. They either become bullies, like the sisters. They find a way to take comfort in something, like Brooks taking care of the bird, or they busy themselves with business, like Red. But Andy is the one who's really the prophet. He's the one who knows that if he works toward his goal, he can maintain hope in the Valley of Bones. I'm gonna jump through the next couple of slides and show you. Oh no, I want to do the Sachs one. So this is from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. One of the most important distinctions I've learned in the course of reflection on Jewish history is the difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is the belief that things will get better. Hope is the belief that together we can make things better. Optimism is a passive virtue, hope an active one. It takes no courage to be an optimist, but it takes a great deal of courage to have hope. Knowing what we do of our past, no Jew can be an optimist, but Jews have never, despite a history of sometimes awesome suffering, given up hope. I think this is just brilliant and a great way to view the movie. And finally, this poem is a poem by Natalie Hertz, Ember. As long as in the heart within, the Jewish soul yearns, and toward the eastern edges onward, an eye gazes toward Zion. Our hope is not yet lost, the hope that is 2,000 years old, to be a free nation in our land, the land of Zion, Jerusalem. This is usually a poem we hear in Hebrew. Yeah, whoever said that, yes, exactly. I was going to build it up a little more, but you're right. This is a poem that we usually hear in Hebrew. This is Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, which means the hope. So Israel is the embodiment of the hope of 2,000 years of us wanting to be a free nation in our land. Happy birthday, Israel, 73 years last week. And there is actually some controversy as to whether Hatikva should still be the anthem of the state of Israel, because there are, within Israel, among Israelis, because there are those who say that this song, this anthem, expresses a hope that has already been realized. They already have their land, so why should this, we've become a country, so why should we keep hoping that we get a land of being free? But others say that it expresses more than just a realized hope. It expresses a hope to live there in peace with our neighbors and allow all of the peoples who find this land important to us, and all of the religions that find this land holy to us, and anyone who would want to live there in peace, to live there in peace. And that hope is still something that we hold on to, and that many, many people actively work towards, sometimes in opposing directions, with the same goal, but in opposite directions. And that's why we should absolutely keep this as the national anthem of Israel, according to that side. But like the Halach Ma'anya that we read earlier, all who are hungry, come and eat. All who are in need should come and participate in our Seder. The true hope is not fulfilled until it is shared with other people. Just like I said earlier, that it's not really freedom until you can share it with someone. That it's not really a hope unless we're hoping together, unless we're working together. So thank you all for being here. Great to enjoy this amazing movie with you. Next week we have a break. No Real Judaism next week. I will be on an airplane coming back from a backyard wedding in New York. Everyone in attendance, all 20 people in attendance, fully vaccinated and outside in the backyard. And just a little shout out, the very first bar mitzvah I ever did as a rabbi is the groom. So I'm very excited to be officiating this wedding this coming Saturday night in New York. So I will not see you during Shabbat services. Sorry, I might see you, but you won't see me. I was thinking I'll see if I can peek in. And so next week we're going to take the break. On May 2nd at noon, we're going to watch a movie that I am challenging myself to watch. So I've never seen it. I've heard great things about it. I hesitate to even watch it. I don't know how it's going to make me feel, but we're going to do it. So May 2nd at noon, we're going to watch Jojo Rabbit. This is, I think it came out 2019. And it was a very highly streamed movie early on in our pandemic, but I want to have a reason to watch it and watch it with intention. So this will give me 2 weeks to get up my nerve and watch this movie. Linda,
Isn't Israel's birthday in May?
on the secular calendar, yes, but on the Hebrew calendar, it's in ER. So it moves around, but May 14th, 1948 was the 6th of ER that year. So that's the date when it's celebrated in Israel on a fluctuating scale. So it was last week.
So they go by the Hebrew calendar.
Of course.
Not by, of course.
For national holidays, they go by the Hebrew calendar. They also go by the secular calendar.
So they celebrate twice.
They don't they celebrate according to the Hebrew calendar, but they operate their businesses according to the secular calendar. So in Israel, it is both 2021 and 5772. I had to do a little math there.
Cool. Thank you.
May 2nd is my birthday, and I do not think I'm going to watch this movie because I expect that it will just be disturbing for me.
Understood. I think it will, for the same reasons that it would be disturbing to me, but at a greater degree. So I totally understand. The following Sunday, I think, is Mother's Day. So on Mother's Day, for if you want to prep for Mother's Day early, we're going to watch Lady Bird.
And next week is the Oscars, I think, next Sunday.
And I had thought about doing an Oscar series as well. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see. They might need me at religious school, which means we might have to stop doing this at noon. So
will we no Torah study next Saturday?
Correct. There's no Torah study this coming Saturday. My apologies for forgetting to say it yesterday. No Torah study this coming Saturday, and we will still be having Shabbat services, of course. Jenna will be leading services, and Nancy Danger will be offering a Devar Torah. So we will still pray together, and who knows, I might do a little internet voyeur, watching services happen, even though you might not know that I'm there.
Can we still communicate with you through email?
Always, yeah.